"Can I fix it in exchange for food?" he asked. They laughed, not knowing he was once a famous mechanic. It was a gray afternoon. Don Ernesto, an old man with white hair and hands hardened by many years of work, walked slowly but firmly toward a repair shop. He carried a worn-out bag and had tired eyes, like someone who had suffered much in life. In front of him, three young mechanics laughed while poorly fixing a luxury Mercedes-Benz that was smoking heavily. "Gentlemen," he said with a deep voice, leaning on his homemade cane, "I know what this engine needs. If you let me try, I can repair it. I only ask for a plate of food in return." The young men laughed loudly. One of them, the most mocking, pointed at him while the others laughed harder. "With those shaky hands? Old man, you couldn't touch this car even if we paid you the most expensive meal," he said. Don Ernesto looked at them calmly. He had suffered insults before, but this one hurt more than he wanted to admit. "I don't want money or fame. I'm just hungry. Give me a chance," he replied. The young men looked at each other, full of pride. "Fine, Grandpa," said another in a sarcastic tone. "If you fix it, we'll hire you. If not, leave and stop bothering us." The old man nodded. He walked to the front of the car, ignoring their laughter and scornful looks. His scarred fingers gently touched the body of the car, like someone touching a memory. The boys watched, amused, not knowing what that gesture meant. Slowly he opened his cloth bag and took out a small rag that looked worthless. For him, that rag was the only thing left from his years working in the best workshops in the country. He had once repaired race cars, powerful engines that roared like beasts. But his life changed when illness took his wife, and he fell into sadness and oblivion. "Crazy old man," one of them muttered with arms crossed. "You won't even know where to start." But Don Ernesto did know. The sound of the engine, the thick smoke, and the smell of burnt oil spoke to him, as if the car itself was telling him its pain. He looked up and said calmly, "This car is crying for help, but you don't know how to listen." The young men laughed louder. "All right then, show us how it's done." They challenged him. The old man put his hands into the engine without fear. He moved wires, adjusted parts, and tightened bolts with the precision of someone who not only knew mechanics, but was born for it. The young men began to feel uneasy. They no longer saw a weak old man, but a confident master with knowledge none of them had. One of them, the quietest, stepped closer and watched carefully. "Sir," he whispered, "what you're doing isn't taught in any school." But his friends quickly silenced him with nervous laughs. "Just pure luck," they said. The engine began to make a different sound, a soft purr that slowly pushed the smoke away. Silence filled the workshop. The old man kept working calmly, ignoring the tension around him. Then, with one final twist of his wrist and a precise adjustment, the engine roared back to life. No more smoke, only the strong power of a machine breathing again. The young men stood frozen, mouths open. The one who had mocked him the most could not even meet his eyes now. The old man wiped his hands with the rag and stepped back. "I didn't fix it for you or for your bet," he said firmly. "I did it because a motor, like a person, deserves respect." Shame appeared on the faces of the young men. They had no words to answer. One of them swallowed hard, trying to recover his arrogance. That means nothing," he said. But deep inside, they all knew they had just witnessed the work of a true master. The silence in the workshop was so heavy it could be cut with a knife. Don Ernesto did not expect applause, but he never imagined their mockery would turn into fear. They had underestimated the wrong man. The old man picked up his rag and put it away carefully, as if it were a treasure. He turned around, ready to leave without asking for anything more. But before he could go, one of the mechanics stopped him with a shaky shout. "Wait!" The others looked confused. The air was thick. Something was about to happen. Don Ernesto stopped. He didn't say a word, but his silence demanded answers. He stood at the edge of the workshop door, his shoulders tensed, his eyes fixed on the ground, as if deciding whether to stay or walk away. The young mechanics could not bear the silence anymore. Finally, the most impulsive of them broke it. "You can't leave like this," he said nervously. "Tell us, who are you really?" The old man slowly lifted his gaze. His eyes, tired but full of dignity, cut through them like blades. I was what you dreamed to be one day. I was a championship mechanic working on cars that broke records. My name was once in the newspapers. But that no longer matters. I learned that glory cannot be eaten, and hunger hurts more than any trophy, he said. His words fell heavy. The three young men who had laughed at him minutes earlier did not know how to react. The youngest, the one who had noticed Ernesto's skill, stepped forward. "Sir, we treated you like a beggar. We didn't know who you were." The old man pressed the rag against his chest and replied firmly, "You didn't need to know who I was to show respect. Respect is not earned by titles. It is given because everyone deserves it." The mechanics lowered their heads. Their pride, which had once filled the room, now collapsed into a corner of the workshop. The one who had challenged him at the start tried to excuse himself. "It's just that life is hard here. Sometimes you have to show strength so others don't walk over you." Don Ernesto looked at him sternly. "You confuse strength with arrogance. True strength is in humility, in listening and learning, not in humiliating others." Silence fell over them again. The Mercedes engine purred steadily as if confirming the old man's words. Then, the young apprentice spoke with a shaky voice. "Sir, would you teach us? Not only how to fix cars, but what it means to be a real mechanic?" The other two looked at him in surprise, but deep inside they knew he had spoken what they all felt. Don Ernesto sighed. He had promised himself never to teach again after losing everything. But seeing those ashamed faces awoke something in him. The desire to leave a legacy. "I don't want a job or money," he said calmly. "But if you truly want to learn, you must start from the bottom. I don't care if your hands get dirty with grease or if you grow tired. The only thing I will not allow is arrogance." The three nodded silently like students before a teacher. For the first time in many years, the old man smiled. "Now bring me a plate of food. That will be enough." That night they shared a humble table in the workshop. The old man ate calmly, like someone who had gone days without a hot meal. As he ate, the young men listened to him speak about his past. He told them about the races, about long nights spent adjusting engines, and about how each car had a soul that needed care. The boys began to understand that mechanics was not just a job. It was an art, and sitting before them was a forgotten artist who had come back to life thanks to something as small as a plate of food and the chance to be heard. In the days that followed, what began as mockery turned into learning. The old man taught them to value every detail, to never look down on anyone, and above all, to remember that greatness is born from respect. The workshop, once a place of arrogance and empty laughter, became a place of serious and dignified work. 1 month later, a customer arrived with an old race car that no one had been able to start. The young men looked at Don Ernesto, who had already become their teacher. He didn't brag. He simply walked to the car, touched its body, and smiled. "This one wants to roar again," he said calmly. They worked together under his guidance, and when the engine came to life with a powerful roar that shook the workshop, they knew they were no longer the same. They had learned that true knowledge does not humiliate. It lifts others up. Over time, the three young men told the story of the old man who came asking for food and ended up teaching them the true meaning of their trade. Each time they told it, they felt both shame and gratitude. Don Ernesto never wanted fame or money. He only wanted to be seen as a human being worthy of respect. In the end, he achieved that. Not with shouts, not with violence, but by showing that experience and humility are worth more than any passing arrogance. You never know who is behind the mask. Appearances can fool you, but respect and dignity must never be negotiable.